I think social media has damaged a lot of people's brains.
I've got a long list of mysteries that I've always wanted to cover, but honestly, some of them are so f***ing stupid that they don't even warrant a full video. So today, I'm just gonna make fun of a couple of them. Now before we start, I want to make a point that I will use repeatedly throughout this video. And that point is that if there is any truth to any of these stories, I sincerely doubt the story happened as we've been told it. I'm sure you've heard of Slender Man. If not, he's a weird looking dude in a suit that really likes children. And honestly, he'd just be another weird looking dude in a suit from the Epstein files if it weren't for his tentacles or whatever the f those things are supposed to be. But thankfully, the stupidity epidemic that we are currently going through has not reached critical mass yet, and most people don't believe that Slender Man is real. And that's because he's not. This thing was actually created by a guy named Eric Knudsen, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, in 2009 for a paranormal Photoshop challenge on the Something Awful forum. Now basically, the participants edited photos to have supernatural shit in them and then try to pass them off as real. Now there wasn't a prize per se for the winner. However, as we know, if you play stupid games, you will win stupid prizes. And a couple of children actually believed that Slender Man was real, and they killed their friends, some even killed their family, to please this thing. Wonder what they thought when they found out Slender Man was actually photoshopped. Now another cryptid you may have heard of before is the Goat Man. BuzzFeed Unsolved covered that one, and Goat Man is supposed to be half man, half goat, half demon. And some people are super serial that Demon Goat Man exists, and that he likes this one bridge in particular in Denton, Texas. At this particular bridge, people have reported glowing eyes, strange noises, and physical attacks. But no one has ever been thrown off the bridge. Now don't get me wrong, that's a good thing, but it also tells me that it's bullshit. Or harmless. When the Ghoul Boys went there with a Ouija board, not a goddamn thing happened to them. And this guy is literally asking to be murdered.
Goat Man, I'm dancing on your bridge. It's my bridge now.
Holy shit.
You hear that? If you want me off this bridge, you're gonna have to kill me.
Holy shit.
You're gonna have to throw me off this bridge yourself.
He did throw somebody off the bridge once.
Are you sure about that?
Well, I guess I should explain why I'm directly contradicting Ryan Bergara. According to the Texas Goat Man legend, a black goat farmer by the name of Oscar Washburn was thrown off the bridge by Ku Klux Klan members. So, those are people. Well, not necessarily people, they're fucking monsters. But he wasn't thrown off the bridge by a demon. Anyway, according to the story, they prepared a noose for him, they put it around his neck, and they threw him off the bridge. When they went over to the side of the bridge to check up on Oscar, Oscar was no longer there. And now it's said that Oscar Washburn's spirit, described as a half goat, half man, half demon, is attacking people on the bridge. Often, those who disrespect the legend.
Hey, you demon fuck.
Jesus Christ. Dropped all the decorum, didn't you?
I wanted to catch him off guard.
But Shane Madej is fine. Shane Madej can say whatever he wants. Well, firstly, the glaring issue with the story is that Oscar Washburn wasn't killed by a paranormal creature, nor did Oscar Washburn seem to even exist. Historians have tried to find records of anybody named Oscar Washburn in this area owning a goat farm, and surprise, surprise, they have found fuck all. But even if he did exist and the Ku Klux Klan destroyed the records, Oscar Washburn still wasn't thrown off the bridge by a paranormal creature. He was thrown off by monsters, but it wasn't paranormal monsters. Anyway, here's one more before we start, and this one's pretty funny. The Michigan Dog Man. This thing comes out every 10 years on years that end with a 7, and is described as a 7-foot-tall, blue-eyed or amber-eyed bipedal canine-like animal with the torso of a man and the fearsome howl that sounds like a human scream. Don't worry though, if you ever encounter the Dog Man, he is scared away by clapping. However, if you don't clap, he's gonna lay the smackdown on your candy ass like he did to a jabroni in Paris, Michigan in 1937. Who is this jabroni?
What is your name?
Detective.
It doesn't matter what your name is!
No, I'm just joking around, it does matter. This jabroni's name was Robert Fortney, and he said that he was attacked by 5 wild dogs in 1937 and that one of the 5 dogs walked on 2 legs. And that's about all there is to that story. What in the blue hell did the Dog Man even want? Did he just want to cement his name as the most electrifying creature in cryptozoology? Did he just want to take Robert Fortney's head?
Squeeze all the jelly out, turn that some sideways, and stick it straight up your candy.
Who knows? Also, that's about enough gimmick infringement for one video, or The Rock might just sue me. Let's get serious again. Did you ever hear the tragedy of the Green Man of Pennsylvania? Now, this story is a little more interesting. The Green Man, also known as Charlie No-Face, was an urban legend about a severely mutilated guy with no eyes and glowing green skin who wandered down a stretch of State Route 351 late at night. But as is tradition, the story got more imaginative over time. People eventually started saying that the Green Man was actually an electrical worker who was in an accident that melted his face and killed him, and his ghost is haunting the site of the accident, the abandoned railroad tunnel in South Park Township, which now is apparently dubbed the Green Man Tunnel. And what a surprise, people have claimed to see his glowing green ghost stalking the tunnel. Now, after this urban legend spread throughout Pennsylvania, some people started walking down Route 351 late at night to see the Green Man for themselves. And every person who walked down that road would die. No, I'm just joking. They would actually become friends with the Green Man because this guy was actually fucking real. Because he was just a normal man. His name was Ray Robinson. Here's a photo of him. And I know it's in monocolor, but he was not actually green. But I guess it's fair to say that he did have somewhat of a glow to him. People loved this guy. Now, the reason I've brought up Ray Robinson in particular is because I want you to see how different the real story is from the one that everybody heard. This is a good example of an urban legend that actually came from something real, but then was completely twisted as time went on. I mean, for starters, he's not dead, he's not a ghost, he didn't haunt the Green Man Tunnel, he also wasn't green, and he wasn't an electrical worker. Here is what really happened to Ray Robinson. In 1919, when Ray was 8 years old, he and a couple of his friends went off to go swimming, and along the way, they came across a bird's nest on top of the Morado Bridge near his home in Beaver Falls. He and his friends then made a bet to see who could climb up on the Harmony Railroad Bridge in Beaver Falls and count how many eggs were in the bird's nest. While Ray was climbing up a pole, he accidentally touched the power lines of an electric trolley and had 22,000 volts of electricity shoot through his body, burning off his face and one of his arms. Fucking horrifying. When he arrived at the hospital, the doctors didn't think that he was going to survive, but somehow he did, although the accident left him horribly disfigured. Now, among the most severe injuries, he lost both of his eyes, one ear, his nose, and had part of his right arm amputated. In later years, Ray lived with his family in the town of Koppel, and because most people found his appearance unsettling, he hardly ever left his home during the day. However, cabin fever is a thing that everybody experiences, and he started walking through the woods. Then the 1950s came around and fucking destroyed the wooded area there because they wanted to mine, so Ray would then start taking walks at night along Koppel New Galilee Road. Now, since he was blind, he would walk with one foot on the edge of the road and one foot on the gravel, and that's how he was able to find his way back home. But since he was walking down the road now and not in the woods anymore, anybody driving down that road late at night might have actually seen Ray. Thought, Moses, was that man green or do I just have really bad eyesight? And then went and told everybody that they saw a glowing green ghost, because nobody misidentifies anything in the world. People then said, no, green glowing ghost is not good enough, and then started making up all that other bullshit that I mentioned earlier, and then people went out looking for him. Now, most of the people that did go to meet him said that he was a pretty great guy, and again, since he was blind, he had the memory of an elephant, and memorized all the baseball statistics and crazy stories that he'd heard. Pretty soon, people were bringing him beer and cigarettes in exchange for stories. Then more and more people started showing up, and on some Saturday nights, there were about 100 cars parked along Koppel Galilee Road just to see Ray. Amazing! What a heartwarming story! Until it isn't. Because some people are just fucking monsters. Which is ironic, because originally the Green Man was the monster in the story, but then on a few occasions, some of the locals who were waiting to see Ray would do horrible things to him. He was deliberately struck by cars more than once, he was beaten up, he was even convinced to get into somebody's car and then taken to a place far away where he was abandoned. Why? Because some people are fucking monsters. Enjoy hell. Anyway, it didn't stop Ray, and he continued walking along that road until the last years of his life, when he moved into an assisted living facility. Then on June 11th, 1985, he passed away at the age of 74. Now, as you can clearly see, the truth was very different from the urban legend that spread around. And that brings us to Mothman. Oh my god, can you believe that people actually believe that this thing is real?
I think social media has damaged a lot of people's brains.
If I could very briefly explain why I don't believe the Mothman is real.
Oh, sorry, I should explain. I'm a grown-up.
Now, what pisses me off the most about the Mothman legend is that I couldn't even find a solid article or video debunking this thing. So like Thanos, I had to do it myself. With a basic fucking understanding of biology, but before we get to that, let's cover how all this Mothman shit started. According to AlexandriaGhost.com, on November 12, 1966, 5 workers who were digging a tomb in a graveyard near Clinton in West Virginia alleged to have observed a man-like shape fly low from the trees right over their heads, a brown human being with wings. The gravediggers dismissed this whole event as a trick of the light or just their deadly nerves playing tricks on them, so they didn't report it until the story hit the press, end quote. Now, I'm not sure if this website's full of shit, but it's one of the only ones that mentions that the gravediggers didn't report their sighting at the time and only reported it once the story went viral, so to speak. And those little extra details I like. Now on to the first reported sighting. 3 days later, on November 15th, 1966, 2 young couples from Point Pleasant, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallet, were driving around late at night near a place known locally as the TNT area. The actual name of this place now is the Clifton F. McClintock Wildlife Management Area, which is fucking hard to say, so TNT area is much better, and apparently this TNT area still has stored explosives. Now, according to a guy named David Clarke of Sheffield Hallam University who did a case study on the Mothman legend, quote, the 4 teenagers were driving near a wartime munitions dump, known locally as the TNT area, when a tall greyish figure appeared near the entrance to an abandoned power station. They said it was shaped like a man, but bigger. Now, Linda would also later describe it as a slender, muscular man, but its most striking features were a pair of glowing red eyes and big wings folded against its back. Here's the part I found the most interesting. The wings unfolded and it took off vertically. Understandably terrified, they turned their car around and sped towards Route 62. As they drove towards the city limits, the creature appeared again and followed them at uncanny speed. They said it was about 100 miles an hour. The 2 young couples then stopped at the Mason County Sheriff's Office and reported their experience to Deputy Millard Halstead. The officer returned to the TNT area with the teenagers, but nothing unusual was found. Obviously. The next morning, the sheriff's office called a press conference that resulted in mass media coverage. Fuck knows why, maybe it was a slow news day. Most of the newspaper stories refer to the unidentified creature as bird-like, but one headline read, Bird, Plane, or Batman. Mason Countyans hunt Mothman. Now, this Mothman name was actually a direct reference to the live-action Batman TV series. The name stuck, and then by the end of the year, everybody was calling it Mothman. As of course is tradition, over the next few days, more people reported sightings of Mothman, like the people who saw the Green Man's ghost in the tunnel. However, 2 volunteer firemen saw this thing and said it was a large bird with red eyes. Oh no! An eyewitness report from level-headed people that's a lot more believable than what 4 teenagers driving around late at night at the TNT area, obviously doing only good and responsible things, reported. What are we gonna do now? Who are we gonna believe? The teenagers, obviously. How the fuck are we gonna sell newspapers with the headline, Firemen See Large Bird? Now, the Mason County Sheriff, a guy named George Johnson, believed the sightings were actually due to an unusually large shitepoke. That's a funny name for a bird. However, a contractor and a professional shit stirrer named Noel Partridge told the sheriff that he also saw the creature, and when he aimed a flashlight at it, its eyes glowed like bicycle reflectors. Like, you know, most animals when they have light shone in their eyes. However, professional shit-stirrer Partridge also blamed buzzing noises coming from his TV and the disappearance of his German Shepherd named Bandit on the Mothman. Because those two things could not have happened without Mothman, apparently. Well, anyway, what did the sane people say about Mothman? Well, a wildlife biologist from the West Virginia University named Robert Smith told reporters that the descriptions and sightings fit the sandhill crane, a large American crane almost as tall as a man with a 7-foot wingspan and reddish coloring around its eyes. Now, fair enough, the sandhill crane is not native to West Virginia. However, it's not impossible that it wandered out of its migration route and could explain why the people who saw this thing couldn't identify it. Because they're not native to West Virginia. Now that's a whole lot more possible than a fucking muscly dude with wings. And thinking again about the Green Man legend and how different Ray Robinson actually was from the story people spread, I am inclined to believe that if the first sighting did indeed happen, this is probably what they saw. They probably saw a sandhill crane. Or just some other unusually large bird. Now also fair enough, Linda Scarberry did mention a slender muscular man. So what? People said that Ray Robinson was glowing green. Eyewitness reports are generally unreliable. Something that is commonly known is that Dolly Parton entered a Dolly Parton lookalike contest and lost to a drag queen. Because I guess our eyes are just so reliable. Now, one more thing to just add onto this is that given the fact that the Batman TV series was quite popular at the time, as well as the comic books by the way, this could have also influenced the perception of this thing and is even believed to have led to the name Mothman, literally coming from a Batman villain named Killer Moth. Unfortunately though, the story doesn't end here. According to US Ghost Adventures, some people took this explanation and ran with it, stating that the crane must have been deformed, especially if it lived nearby an area that was once filled with nearby bunkers used to manufacture munitions during World War II. Perhaps these bunkers leaked toxic chemicals into the wildlife preserve and created a monster crane. Sure, why not? Isn't it just as likely that the first report was wrong? I guess not. Guess I'll just go fuck myself then. According to Alexandria Ghosts again, for over a month, people continued to see the Mothman, because of course they did. Additionally, a series of unexplained occurrences started to plague the city of Point Pleasant. Strange lights were seen circling the area. People continuously complained that their TV sets were acting wonky and that there was a constant buzzing in the air. Animals would bark at nothing, like they do every day, and most were afraid to go out at night. Strange men in black overcoats roamed the street, their names censored from the Epstein files. Oh, no, wait. This is the elusive men in black. They're just out there not giving a fuck about being seen this time, but every other story, they are impossible to spot. What the fuck is this story? Anyways, all the weird shenanigans stopped on December 15th, 1967, when the Silver Bridge collapsed. And here we are again. Another real tragedy with real people who lost their lives tied to some ridiculous paranormal bullshit. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, quote, at 4:58 p.m. on December 15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge spanning the Ohio River between Point Pleasant, West Virginia and Canoga, Ohio, collapsed without warning. At the time of the failure, the bridge was packed with rush hour and holiday season traffic. 46 lives were tragically lost and 2 bodies were never recovered. Investigation of the wreckage determined that the collapse was the result of a small crack in one of the suspension linkage eye-bars. There was no structural redundancy, so the small failure spread across the section and led to the collapse of the entire bridge. The incident had a profound impact on the approach used by civil engineers to assess the integrity of bridge structures. The Federal Aid Highway Act of 1968 initiated the first National Bridge Safety Inspection Program in the United States as a direct result of the collapse of the Silver Bridge. End quote. A real tragedy and a major lesson learned in safety. The civil engineers, who design structures like this for a living, figured out why the bridge collapsed, changed their standards, and now bridges are safer. However, some people know better, and they say that the bridge was only carrying half of the weight it could manage, so it shouldn't have collapsed, despite the fact that the bridge failed because of a small crack in one of the eye bars. But then these people go on to say that this picture here of Mothman is the reason the bridge collapsed. This is Mothman on the bridge. I don't know what that is. But what I do know is that Mothman didn't make the Silver Bridge collapse. And you want to know how I know that? This is not the Silver Bridge.
Boom. Roasted.
This is the Ironton-Russell Bridge, an unrelated structure that was later demolished in 2003. Anyways, people still say that Mothman has been seen several other times before several other disasters. But you gotta be crazy to believe that now, after I've just proven that his one major claim to fame is fucking bullshit. They say he was in Chernobyl, right before the reactor went nuclear. They say he was in Japan, right before the 2011 tsunami. And they say that he was in Mexico, right before the Mexican swine flu outbreak. Sure, why not? Some people say he brings death and doom. Others say that he won't hurt you. I say this is all baloney. Let's get to the real issue here with Mothman. This creature that has been seen by everybody on the planet Earth has never been photographed. But maybe it's just fast. But not faster than the human brain can process details. The description of this thing is pretty consistent. They say that he kinda looks like Batman. He's like 6 or 7 foot tall and has a 7 or 10 foot wingspan. And fine, let's go with that. A creature this size, with wings this size, would not be able to fly. It's plain and simple. But we don't know what Mothman's made of, so how can we say that? Well, I assume that he's made of matter, and matter has mass. So let's say that Mothman is more of a man-moth, meaning that he has bone marrow and not air in his bones like birds do. And let's also say that he's been hitting the gym in those juice bars with Scott Steiner. Man-moth is gonna be kinda heavy. Okay, let's take Linda Scarberry's description then. Let's say he's 6 foot tall, he's a slender muscular dude, and he weighs like 90 kilograms or 200 pounds. This would mean that man-moth needs a wingspan of at least 7 meters or 22 or 24 feet. 10 foot wingspan is not gonna work for him. How the fuck is this guy gonna fly? Alternatively, let's say Mothman is just some weird dude with hollow bird bones and is actually a featherweight. The largest bird ever discovered is the Pelagornis, a giant seabird that had a body of about 6 feet and a wingspan of 20 to 24 feet. Which is about how big this fucking guy would need to be even if he weighed 90 kilograms. That said though, it's estimated that this giant seabird was actually really light and weighed like 22 kilograms or 48 pounds. Now, I don't want to be a dick or anything, but I'm pretty sure that most people could win a fight against a 6 foot dude who weighs 22 kilograms. So what kind of threat is Mothman anyway? That guy's German Shepherd would have ripped Mothman apart. So I don't think Mothman's a real threat unless he comes at you with guns and shit, but that's not the point really. The point is whether or not Mothman is real. He isn't, but going back to the best guess, the sandhill crane. Now the sandhill crane is one of the largest birds, but it's only about 3 or 4 feet tall with a wingspan of about 7 feet. Technically, it doesn't match the description given. However, fuck eyewitness description. Now the sandhill crane's wingspan is significantly longer than its body, and that's the case for most birds. But there are some birds out there that do have shorter wings in proportion to their body that can fly. And there are a lot of birds with short wings in proportion to their body that can't fly. It depends entirely on how much they weigh, what their body structure is, and on something called wing loading. Wing loading is basically the bird's body weight in relation to the size and power of its wings. Smaller wings and a heavier body are naturally going to make it harder to fly. So a man-sized dude with some tiny-ass moth wings is just not going to be able to fly. Too bad the witnesses didn't say Mothman had bigger wings when they imagined this whole thing up. Or didn't just come out and say, yeah, you know what, the sandhill crane actually does make a lot of sense. But hey, Point Pleasant has this pretty awesome statue and a festival that brings in shitloads of money every year, so that's great. Anyways, what happened next? Well, Mothman was never seen again, except for the times he was seen before disasters like I mentioned earlier, but in 1975, a UFO researcher named John Keel wrote the Mothman prophecies, and basically did an Ed Warren by embellishing and sensationalizing the fucking hell out of the Mothman story. And this fictional book is what some people have confused for the real story. So when they tell the Mothman legend, they're actually adding in a bunch of fake details from this John Keel guy. Now, one example of an incorrect fact was that there was over 100 reports of the Mothman between 1966 and 1967, with even more people afraid to report their sightings. However, a guy named Jan Brunven points out that these written sources often consisted of children's books or sensationalized or undocumented accounts that failed to quote identifiable people. In essence, bullshit. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say that based on all the information I found about Mothman, I am satisfied, and in my opinion, the Mothman is debunked. Now, speaking of birds being misidentified, our next stupid story is the Hopkinsville Goblins. And I just gotta say, the Hopkinsville Goblins case is one of the stupidest things I've ever read in my life. And I just read Mothman. Now, psychologists have even used this alleged incident as an academic example of pseudoscience to help students distinguish truth from fiction. So what in the blue hell happened here? Well, my favorite write-up of the story comes from Colin Dickey writing on Atlas Obscura. Again, I don't know if this website's full of shit, but the story certainly is, so does it really matter? Not really. But here we go. At about 11 p.m. on August 22nd, 1955, 2 cars arrived at the local police station in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, with 5 adults and 7 children. These 12 people rushed in and told the police, quote,
Write this down. Do you like donuts?
"We need help. We've been fighting them for nearly 4 hours." One of the adults, a guy named Billy Ray Taylor, said that he'd been visiting from Pennsylvania, and sometime earlier, he went outside to fetch water from the farm's well. Now we're just fresh off our Ray Robinson story, who was also from Pennsylvania, who some people thought was a green glowing ghost, when he was just a dude. But Billy Ray says that while the sun was setting and he was walking along, he saw a circular-shaped object hover through the air before coming to rest in a nearby gully. Billy Bob then ran back to the farmhouse to get a shotgun and came back to investigate. It could have been anything. It could have been a fucking piece of paper. It could have been a plastic bag. But okay. Now, apparently as he got closer to the object, a goblin-like thing with glowing eyes appeared and came towards him. It had, quote, huge eyes and hands out of proportion with its body, and looked to be wearing some kind of metal plate. Now this is the bit that really gets me. Billy Bob once again ran back to the farmhouse and for some reason dropped the shotgun and grabbed a .22 caliber pistol instead. While other family member Lucky Sutton grabbed a shotgun and joined him. Now, why didn't Billy Ray Cyrus blast this alien with a shotgun? Unclear. Now, I don't know anything about guns, but I was always under the impression that a shotgun was stronger. So, I don't understand. Then, apparently, these creatures were then repeatedly popping up at the doorway and looking in through the windows. Quote, a creature, whether it was the same one, they didn't know, appeared in the window, and Sutton unloaded his shotgun at it, blowing out the window screen. When they went outside to see if they'd hit anything, Taylor felt a huge hand reach down from the low roof and grab his hair. He pulled away and the 2 men went looking for their quarry. They found one creature in a tree and another on the roof of a nearby house. Sutton fired another shotgun blast at one, which knocked it down but didn't appear to have done serious damage. At that point, the goblins, as the family described them, disappeared. They then barricaded themselves inside the farmhouse and the families waited for a chance to escape, at which point they drove like hell for the police station. End quote. Trees and rooftops, huh? Where birds hang out. Now, after hearing this story, the police were kinda befuddled. How is it possible to be in a gunfight for 4 hours and not kill anything? Either they were shooting at nothing, or they were a family of stormtroopers, or maybe just drunk. However, everyone was actually completely sober, so they were probably stormtroopers. But the police thought that maybe this was actually just a big stormtrooper battle between some locals, so they thought they better go check it out. So 4 city police officers, 5 state troopers, 3 deputy sheriffs, and 4 military police officers drove down to the Sutton farmhouse. After looking around, all the cops found was broken glass and holes in the farmhouse. There were no goblins, there were no goblin footprints, there was no goblin UFO, and no evidence that anything had even landed nearby. The cops then said You know, this was a massive fucking disappointment. We wanted to see some goblins. Let's head back to the station for some donuts and come back tomorrow when there's some sunlight.
What's your favorite donut?
Jelly.
Oh, you like jelly? Well, jelly's a good one. The Rock says this: when you leave here, go down to Dunkin' Donuts, get the biggest jelly donut you can find. Squeeze all the jelly out, turn that some sideways, and stick it straight up your candy.
When the cops came back the following day, this group of 12 family members were gone, and the farmhouse was completely empty. Some neighbors then told the cops that the family had packed up and left after claiming that the creatures had returned at about 3:30 in the morning. Now, why the creatures only picked on them and not any of the neighbors is a complete mystery. But whatever. Now, I'm not entirely sure about what happened to the family after they left that night, but it seems like they came back and continued living at the farmhouse because after the story hit the news, journalists, radio station hosts, and locals just started showing up on the farm, hoping to see some goblins. Quote, the Suttons put up a no trespassing sign, but it was largely ignored, so they tried to charge admission starting at 50 cents for coming onto the farm, $1 to speak to one of the family members, and $10 for photographs. Some people dismissed them as nothing more than profiteers and fraudsters, but was there more to what they had encountered than attempts at making a quick buck? No. For once, skeptics and believers actually agree on something, and most people agree that what they were probably shooting at was owls. Based on the heights of the windows of the farmhouse, estimates of the size of these alleged creatures varied from 2 feet to 4 feet, so 61 centimeters to 122 centimeters. And since the family mentioned details like large pointed ears, claw-like hands, eyes that glowed yellow, and spindly legs, most people said that sounds like a fucking owl. There are quite a lot of similarities between these goblins and eagle owls or great horned owls. See, these owls are nocturnal, they fly silently, they have yellow eyes, they aggressively defend their nest and are about the same size, at least on the lower end of the estimate, and they kinda look the same as the drawings made of the creature. But what about the UFO that Billy Bob saw? Well, firstly, fuck eyewitness testimony. Secondly, according to my hero Joe Nickel, meteor sightings also occurred at the time that could explain what Billy Ray Taylor saw. He claimed that he saw a bright light streak across the sky and disappear beyond a tree line some distance from the house. And most people said, sounds like a fucking meteor. Author Brian Dunning noted that there are simply too many similarities between the creatures reported by the family and an aggressive pair of the local great horned owls, which do stand about 2/3 of a meter tall. Amazingly, a French ufologist that I'm going to butcher the name of, Renaud Leclet, argued in a publication that the best explanation of the case is that the residents had simply seen great horned owls. Amazing. I suddenly have a new hope for ufologists now. I'm just joking. There are some that say this case stands out with the sheer amount of witnesses. But 7 scared children aren't exactly reliable witnesses, nor are 2 adults shooting at owls. Stop fucking hurting animals. Now there are a lot more creature mysteries that we can debunk, but let's save those for future videos and end off today with the granddaddy of all creature mysteries, the Skinwalker Ranch. And if there's anyone out there that actually believes this story, boy do I have some good news for you. You see, I'm actually an ultra-wealthy Nigerian prince and I'm stuck in South Africa, and if you send me $10,000, American of course, I can return home, access my bank, and will repay you with riches beyond your wildest dreams. Just trust me, bro. That's basically Skinwalker Ranch in a nutshell. Anyway, Skinwalker Ranch, previously known as the Sherman Ranch, is a massive 512-acre property located southeast of Ballard, Utah, where all the paranormal things happen. Skinwalker Ranch is basically playing Pokemon with paranormal creatures. They caught them all. They have UFOs, they have orbs, they have invisible obstructions, they have poltergeist, they have Bigfoot, cattle mutilations, large bulletproof animals, humanoid creatures, skinwalkers, shadow figures, portals, wormholes, and crop circles. Moses, leave some paranormal for the rest of us. However, the silver lining is this. This sounds like just the place for paranormal research teams to spend like 30 years photographing and videoing everything to prove to all the assholes like me that there really are things out there beyond my comprehension. And that's exactly what happened. Well, let me explain what I mean by that. Paranormal teams have been there for 30 years, but they've captured nothing. How the fuck is that possible? Yeah, we all know how. Now, I've always been kind of curious about the full story of Skinwalker Ranch, and why anyone thought it would help legitimize the claims by putting this shit on the History Channel. Because anything that plays on the History Channel is a joke.
Ancient astronaut viewers say yes.
But let's go over the actual history of this property quickly. Again, I don't know if this website's full of shit, but it seemed fine to me. Quote, the Uinta Valley Reservation was created for the Ute in October 1861 by the executive order of President Abraham Lincoln. The Uncompahgre Reservation, commonly called the Ouray Reservation, was created in January 1882, and in 1886, the two reservations were merged to become the Uinta and Ouray Reservation. For more than 150 years, the Ute have lived here on the reservation that covers over 4.5 million acres. The Indians have long said that the bordering ranch is on the path of the Skinwalker, and for that reason, have long been forbidden to go near the property. The Skinwalker is a malevolent shape-shifting witch of the Navajo people, whom the Ute people take very seriously. Before the Ute moved to the reservation, they were fierce and warlike people who lived primarily in Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. At one time, the Ute and Navajo fought together against their common enemies. However, when the Ute first acquired horses from the Spanish, they began to abduct Navajo people and sell them in the New Mexico slave markets. Fucking hell, that escalated quickly. Well, according to reports, the Ute has encountered skinwalkers in the area on numerous occasions. One account described them as looking like humans with dog heads smoking cigarettes. Where the fuck did it get cigarettes from? Hold on! Maybe this is the same dog man that laid the smackdown on jabroni Robert Fortney, and maybe that's the reason they beat him up. They were stealing his cigarettes. Did I just solve a mystery? What do the people on the History Channel think?
Ancient astronaut viewers say yes.
Well, goddamn, look at me go. Anyway, other reports say that these skinwalkers are large, black, hairy, and really fast, and that they have enormous coal red eyes and leave large tracks behind. Tracks that I guess have never been found. On to the ranch now. According to Legends of America again, quote, the ranch, which takes its name from these shape-shifting witches, was first homesteaded by the Myers family in 1905, and at this time the ranch was only a few small buildings on the northwest corner at the foot of Skinwalker Ridge. Now, I've not been able to find out when exactly this place was originally built, why it was built specifically, or who originally built it, or how they built it. I'm just imagining there's some carpenter there, he's hammering some nails into a piece of wood, and here comes a skinwalker and beats him up for his cigarettes. But later, the original homestead was abandoned, and the Myers family established a new home on the eastern side of the ranch. Now, I was like, why did they abandon this particular spot? Was it because of all of the skinwalkers and the cigarettes? Because if the first family that lived here also mentioned any of this weird shit that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes, then I'd be willing to say that maybe there is some of that Ray Robinson truth to the Skinwalker Ranch after all. But after a little bit of research, it appears at least that the Myers family did not report anything unusual while living there, and it appears that they left this particular spot on the ranch because the water was alkaline, therefore not drinkable. So they had to keep going to Fort Duchesne for potable water. But it's clear that nothing weird happened to them, and they didn't run away from this place because of all of the skinwalkers. And as proof of that, by the 1930s, the ranch was occupied by Kenneth John Myers and his wife Edith. They stayed on the property until 1987. During their occupancy, they didn't report anything strange either. However, some of their neighbors did. So why aren't we talking about those properties? Why are we talking about a place where nothing happens? The neighbors saw UFOs, and apparently there were hundreds of reports. There were so many that the Utah Patrol stopped filing these reports. But here we are, talking about Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, we're even missing out on the cattle mutilations because every time they reported a UFO, some cattle got mutilated. But here we are, on Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, even the people all the way back in the 1700s were reporting UFOs, but here we are on Skinwalker Ranch where nothing's happening. It's mentioned that UFO reports date all the way back to the 1700s when Spanish explorers reported seeing craft in the sky. Now, I'm just going to be an asshole here and say prove it. Show me where these reports are, because I can't find them. But for shits and giggles, let's say they did see things in the sky. What does that mean for the Skinwalker Ranch story? Well, I suppose some people think it means, see, look, there are weird things here. Sure, why not? especially since technology and an understanding of the universe seems to be working backwards in all of these stupid fucking stories. In 1943, people figured out how to teleport a Navy destroyer in the Philadelphia experiment. But now, it takes Japanese scientists 25 years to figure out how to quantum teleport 3 photons, which is not even physical teleportation. Quantum teleportation transfers information, not matter. But people in the 1700s just knew what they were looking at in the sky. Then in the 1960s, the people at Campier and Montauk were able to time travel, and for some reason, did not go back in time to kill Adolf. For some reason, they also didn't go back to the time of Jesus and bring him to the present day. Speaking of other peculiarities, the first family that lived at Skinwalker Ranch did not report anything strange at all while they lived there until 1987. And they even said that the people who bought the property after them and started making shit up were lying. Oh no! Conflicting reports again. Who are we gonna believe? The crazy people, obviously. One reason people are inclined to believe this story, I guess, is because of a retired science teacher named Joseph Jr. Hicks. Now, Joseph Hicks investigated more than 400 UFO sightings in the Uinta Basin. He found that the UFO appearances often coincided with cattle mutilations. Apparently, these cattle mutilations were strange because of, quote, surgical cuts and an absence of blood. Now, are we saying that there is no way for that to occur naturally? Is this something that has never been seen caused by earthly sources? No, it has been seen caused by earthly sources. Firstly, the lack of blood at the surface is often due to livor mortis, where blood naturally pools in the lowest part of the body after the heart stops pumping, draining it away from the exposed areas often found mutilated. Secondly, the appearance of clean surgical cuts can be explained by post-mortem bloating, which causes the skin to stretch and tear in linear patterns. Have you ever put a hot dog in the microwave for too long? Are you about to tell me that there is an alien in my microwave surgically cutting my hot dogs when I microwave them for too long? But these surgical cuts are not always caused by bloating and tearing. Sometimes they're just caused by regular predator-scavenger activity. But no, I guess that's not good enough. It's gotta be skinwalkers and aliens. Over the years, many eyewitnesses saw beings in the windows or portholes of UFOs. After the Mayas vacated the ranch in 1987, it stood empty for 7 years. And then in 1994, Terry and Gwen Sherman purchased it. The Shermans then moved in with their 2 children and livestock. Quote, they were surprised to find that the previous owners had installed deadbolt locks on all the doors and windows, including those even inside the house. Some of these had deadbolts on both the inside and the outside of the house. Even the kitchen cabinets had bolts, and at both ends of the house, iron stakes and heavy chains had been installed, which the Shermans guessed were used by the previous tenants for large guard dogs. End quote. Now, this claim on the screen right now is something else that the Myers family has said is complete bullshit, as well as this one. The Shermans were also perplexed by a clause in their real estate contract that stipulated there was to be no digging on the ranch without first notifying the previous owners. End quote. The Myers family said that this was also complete bullshit, and I'm going to trust the Myers family because they seem to be sane. So these deadbolts must have been installed later. My guess is by the Shermans, but the house was empty for 7 years, so who knows. Now before I continue, just remember this. The Myers family owned this place since 1905, and not once did anything weird happen while they were there. But the very day that Terry and Gwen Sherman move into the Skinwalker Ranch, they spot a large coyote or a wolf in one of their pastures, which soon came over to the ranch and made its way to a livestock pen. It then grabbed a calf by the nose, trying to drag it through the corral bars. Terry Sherman and his father then beat the animal to make it release the calf, but were unsuccessful. When that failed, Terry Sherman shot the animal with a .357 Magnum at point-blank range, but still, the wolf held on to the calf. After a second shot, it released the calf and stood calmly, looking at the men. After a few more shots, the wolf trotted off. just trotted off, just to add insult to injury. Amazingly, there was no blood or sign of injury in the animal. The men then followed the animal's tracks for about a mile before they suddenly ended, as if it had simply vanished. This was just the first foreshadowing of the events that would follow. End quote. I'm gonna just be honest, I don't believe them and I think they're lying. A few weeks later, when Gwen Sherman was in her car, she encountered a large wolf whose back was parallel to the top of her window. I wish I knew what kind of car she had, because she could have had one of those very small cars or one of those very tall ones. Guess we'll never know. Now, she said a dog-like animal accompanied the large wolf that she couldn't identify. But I'm gonna take a guess that it was part of the canine family, the Kennedy family, because it looked dog-like.
Yes, science!
Well, anyway, this big wolf didn't do anything. On another occasion, the Shermans saw a strange hyena-like creature attacking one of their horses. They described it as low to the ground, heavily muscled, weighing perhaps 200 pounds, with curly red hair and a bushy tail. Now, according to Terry, when he approached this animal, it vanished before his eyes. Afterwards, they went to check the horse and found numerous claw marks on its legs. So let's just remember this. According to the Shermans, on at least 2 occasions, some weird creature has come around and harmed their animals. Let's just remember that for later. Now, over the years, they said they saw a bunch of weird lights in the sky, there was a bunch of cattle mutilations, and a bunch of their animals disappeared. Quote, of the cattle that disappeared, one seemed to have been magically lifted from the snow. Its hoof prints led into a field and then just stopped. The ground was littered with broken twigs and branches, and the tops of the trees appeared to have been cut off. End quote. Now, does this sound real so far? Not really, but it's about to get even worse. Quote, other strange events were also happening during these years. Pastures would unexplainably light up at night. The sounds of heavy machinery could be heard as if operating underground. Poltergeist-type activity occurred, such as items disappearing only to reappear later, and strange disembodied voices, often speaking unfamiliar languages, were heard from above. Crop circles of flattened grass were also found on the ranch. End quote. Now, I wanted to give the story the benefit of the doubt, and I did consider that maybe there's a military base somewhere around here. Maybe that's where the heavy machinery sounds are coming from, and maybe that explains the lights in the sky. But then again, why do this in a place that is not restricted to the public? If these things are top secret projects, why not just do this shit at Area 51? And if they wanted more space, why not just restrict this area? Makes no fucking sense to me. Terry apparently said that for a long time they were wondering about what they were really seeing, if it was something to do with a top secret project or something. I doubt it. Now, let's preface this next bit by reminding ourselves that at the time, the Shermans claimed that some awful shit was happening to their livestock. So why I think Terry Sherman is an asshole is because, according to him, one evening in May 1996, Terry was outside with 3 of his dogs. Yeah, you're not gonna like where this is going. Anyway, he notices a blue orb darting around the field near the ranch, and he urges his dogs to go after it. Quote, the dogs chased and barked at the orb, following it into some thick brush. Terry then heard them make 3 terrible yelps, and when he called for them, they didn't respond. He then must have just gone back inside and went to sleep, because the next morning when he went to go look for the dogs, he found only 3 round greasy lumps with what appeared to be a scorched spot. The dogs were never seen again. End quote. Fuck you, dude. If all this bullshit you were spewing was true, then you knew that something around there was hurting your animals. But you sent your dogs after it anyway. But even though I'm sure this whole story is fake, fuck this guy. But why lie about something like this? What is the point of making up this story? The common goal for people making up stories like this is often money. We know from past videos that people will say that they went through some terrible ordeal in their haunted house so that they could sell the rights to that story for book and movie deals. In the cases where the house was already well known because of the books and movies, a new family would often buy that property, say the hauntings are still happening right now, and then try to sell that property for a massive profit, which is what happened with the Conjuring house. But that doesn't seem to be what happened with the Shermans. So this is the only part of the story where I truly don't understand the motive here. They reportedly sold the ranch to a guy named Robert Bigelow, a millionaire businessman, ufologist, and the founder of the National Institute for Discovery Science, for a massive loss. And not only did they sell the ranch for a loss, they also signed an NDA with this guy, so they weren't even allowed to go speak about what they experienced. Ultimately they did though, that's why we know what happened, but they didn't get rich off of it. It doesn't even appear if they made any money off of it. But I could be wrong about that, that's just based on the information I was able to find. But I'll trust that that is accurate. If it's not, whatever. Anyway, Robert Bigelow buys this place and then began establishing a compound with high-tech sensing equipment. PhD-level field investigators, scientists, and a security detail that guarded the property 24/7. Bigelow's goal here was to advance the study of various fringe sciences and paranormal topics, including UFOs and cattle mutilations. So this place has been studied since 1996. Now photos can be faked, so can video, but there are so many fucking creatures here, you'd think by now they would have captured one and shown the world. But they didn't. So with little apparent success, the National Institute of Discovery Science was disbanded in 2004. But it appears that people still had an interest in this place. And this is the part that is absolutely batshit crazy. In 2007, this Institute of Discovery Science group or whatever was replaced by Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, which was more secretive and working towards a government sponsor. Then later that same year in 2007, the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, a government-run program, gave $22 million to Robert Bigelow so that he could, I guess, keep on studying the weird phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch.
I said, hold up, wait a minute.
What in the actual fuck were they thinking? This money could have gone to much better causes. Homeless people, animals in need, starving children, cancer research, but instead it goes to Skinwalker Ranch. And the reason for this ridiculous decision was actually at the request of a guy named Harry Reid, a Senate Majority Leader at the time who had long been interested in space phenomena, and was a longtime friend of Robert Bigelow. And there it is. Scamwalker Ranch. Now, at the time, this was not publicly known, and only 10 years later in 2017 would the New York Times break the story. Once this was all figured out, the Department of Defense had no other choice but to confirm that, yep, they're wasting money, and Senator Harry Reid had to admit his complicity. Now, I'm sure most people would say, you wasted $22 million, but fair enough, you caught an alien. We can now go to the zoo and we can look at an actual fucking alien. But I guess we'll never know because parts of this Skinwalker Ranch study remain classified. Probably because they found nothing and wasted $22 million that could have been used for better things. Strangely though, the Department of Defense has never officially acknowledged the program's existence, but does admit that the program was shut down in 2012. So there you go. Scamwalker Ranch. Now that same year in 2012, Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies lost funding from the Department of Defense after the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program contract expired and was not renewed. Probably because there was no reason to. Because Skinwalker Ranch is just some normal ranch out there in Utah. A couple years later in 2016, Skinwalker Ranch was sold to Adamantium Holdings for the rumored amount of $4.5 million. A $4.3 million profit. Because Robert Bigelow paid $200,000 for that ranch. Adamantium Holdings is owned by the ultra-wealthy businessman and UFO enthusiast Brandon Fugal. Now, Fugal thought all these sightings and paranormal events were legit and needed more investigation, so he got the History Channel involved to make a TV show about Skinwalker Ranch. And if you believe anything the History Channel says, boy do I have some good news for you. In conclusion, with all the TV shows and research teams, you'd think they'd have found something by now, but they haven't. And considering the fact that the Myers family lived there for 82 years and literally nothing happened to them, and they even said that everyone was lying, I'm gonna go ahead and say that Skinwalker Ranch is debunked. And that's about all I can take for today. If you liked this compilation style video, let me know what you think I should make fun of next. I've got a couple of things in mind, but the more the merrier. Before I go, I just want to say thank you to all of our channel members, all of our subscribers, and everybody who watched this video. Feel free to leave your thoughts and theories in the comment section, also your suggestions for the next installment of silly mysteries that piss me off. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more bullshit from the Mystorian, and I'll see you guys next time with another mystery, or a couple more bullshit stories. Thanks for watching.
Do not look up, do not look up.
Surprise, motherfucker.